Give Sarah the deluxe course as usual.
Taylor said without hesitation. Then James spoke curiously.
Huh? Mom gets instant noodles, right?
What are you talking about, James?
Well, whenever we order pizza, Mom always has instant noodles, right?
Taylor panicked at James' words. This is it, I thought, and I finally said it. Why don't you give the fancy meal to your 23-year-old mistress? Needless to say, the room froze at that moment. The die was finally cast. Taylor is flustered. And now is my chance. I have been preparing for this day meticulously. I have plenty of evidence, and there's no way he'll have any excuses. In front of my father-in-law, John, and my mother-in-law, Mary, I will make Taylor apologize to me. Then, I'll slam the divorce papers down. But I don't intend to end it with just our divorce. The flames of my revenge won't be extinguished by something so small. I won't be satisfied until I expose everything. I looked at Taylor and smiled wryly. My name is Sarah Moore. This year marks my milestone 40th birthday. Normally, it's the age when one starts thinking about retirement, but I can't afford that luxury. My husband, Taylor, who is 2 years older than me, is a government employee. But contrary to the public image, he seems quite busy. Taylor leaves early in the morning and comes home late. So I end up doing all the housework. Moreover, on weekends, Taylor goes out fishing, his hobby. If only he would play with our 10-year-old son, James. I could get the housework done during that time, leaving everything to me while he plays around. Maybe it's better if we just get a divorce. I've been thinking that a lot lately. However, I feel that part of the reason Taylor turned out this way is also because of me. Before we got married, I worked at a store that dealt with luxury goods. One of our regular customers was my father-in-law, John. At that time, John was an executive at a major advertising agency and visited the store several times a month. As we talked, John took a liking to me, and that's how I ended up having a formal meeting with Taylor. But Taylor was reluctant about marriage. When I asked why, Taylor said,
I'm not that outstanding.
"You're a government employee, right? I think that's more than enough."
No, my brother is a salesperson at a trading company, and my dad is an executive at an ad agency.
Apparently, Taylor thought he was inferior compared to his family. So, I tried to encourage Taylor by saying, government jobs are stable, and if I had to choose a spouse, I'd definitely choose a government employee.
Really?
If it were me, I'd absolutely choose you, a government employee. It seems my casual words resonated with Taylor, and we ended up dating and getting married. Even after marriage, I kept praising Taylor at every opportunity. Every time Taylor was praised by me, he gained confidence. In the meantime, Taylor got promoted, and before I knew it, he was the top of his peers. But on the other hand, Taylor started to act more arrogant.
I'm going fishing, so make sure you clean and do the laundry.
What? Busy as I was, I couldn't help but respond curtly. Then, Taylor suddenly got angry.
What's with that attitude? Got a problem?
What? I'm just busy.
Shut up. Don't act all high and mighty when I'm the one supporting you.
Taylor raised his voice. I quickly clammed up.
I took you as my wife. If you defy me, I'll divorce you.
I didn't mean it that way.
Then at least answer properly. Say, yes, I understand.
I was quite irritated. But a wife should respect her husband. That was normal for our parents' generation. So that's what my mom taught me too. I'm sorry. I understand.
That's all right. I'm off then.
Taylor said, laughing as he left the house. I'm not saying you should just do everything your husband says, but it's true that respecting your husband is better. If he can relax at home without building up stress, he'll do a good job outside. That's what I believed. But this only made him more conceited. By the time our son James was born, Taylor started acting like a king at home.
Don't waste money. Be more frugal.
Taylor would say that like a catchphrase. Meanwhile, he was spending a lot of money on his hobbies. I want to clean the room.
You can clean, but don't touch my fishing gear.
Taylor pointed to his fishing gear in the corner of the room. Looking closely, I noticed many things I had never seen before. Hey, isn't there more stuff again?
So what? It's my money.
No matter how much I saved, it was pointless. I said that many times, but he wouldn't listen. I knew he wouldn't listen today either. With that thought, I couldn't say anything. How long did this life continue? The allowance Taylor gave me never increased. Of course, Taylor was getting promoted, and he should have been earning a decent salary. But the allowance he gave me was almost the same as when we first got married. Now that James was in elementary school, expenses would only increase. I couldn't let my child feel ashamed. So I finally decided to talk to Taylor about it. Hey, about the cost of living, can't you increase it a bit?
It's enough already.
But I want to send James to tutoring, and he's growing, so he need more for clothes too. I gave Taylor many reasons that should convince him, but Taylor just snorted.
I don't care. You just need to save more.
It's already at the limit, for James's sake.
Shut up. Then you get a job.
Taylor shouted. I was shocked and asked back, get a job? Me?
Yeah. If you say it's for James, then you can at least get a job, right?
I pondered over Taylor's words. I used to work before we got married, so I had no resistance to working. But everything is different now. Back then, I lived alone and could do housework on my days off. But now, that's not possible. If I slack off, it would inconvenience James too.
What's the matter? Were you all talk about doing it for James?
Taylor smirked. I got angry and retorted, fine, I'll get a job.
You can do whatever job you want, but don't slack off on housework. That's the condition.
I get it. It felt like a heated exchange. I declared loudly. After that, I started a part-time job at a supermarket, but I couldn't work long hours. I needed to have enough time for housework so Taylor wouldn't complain. Even a few hours of part-time work significantly helped our finances. I focused on both housework and my part-time job. One such weekend, James came up to me while I was doing the laundry.
Mom, what's for lunch?
Is it that time already? It was just past 11:30 a.m. James, being a growing boy, must be hungry by now. All right, I'll get it ready. What do you want to eat?
Pizza.
That might be difficult, I thought, but Taylor chimed in.
How about we order in?
Really? Yay.
James jumped up in excitement. I hurriedly tried to stop Taylor. Wait a minute. Pizza?
What? Do you have something to say?
Well, it's just. I couldn't tell James that it was too extravagant, so I hesitated. But Taylor, seemingly oblivious to my concerns, continued with a grin.
Then you can have instant noodles. We'll order the pizza.
That's not what I meant.
Shut up. Just do the housework and keep quiet.
Taylor cut me off. That left me speechless. In the end, Taylor only ordered pizza for himself and James. He placed a cup of instant noodles in front of me and started eating the pizza right in front of me. It was humiliating, but I didn't want to argue in front of James. I watched James enjoying the pizza with a strained smile. From that day on, I stopped thinking of Taylor as my husband. He was just a roommate, someone I stayed with for James's sake. I want to get a divorce once James grows up. That's how I started thinking. But it wasn't all bad. I could now speak my mind to Taylor, something I had been holding back. About tomorrow, Sunday, I have to work.
What? I have plans to go fishing. You expect James to stay home alone?
You can take him with you. Is there a problem with that? When I asked, Taylor stammered. Of course, if it were a company event, it might be inconvenient. But Taylor is a government employee. Basically, government employees are prohibited from hosting events. So even if Taylor had someone with him, it shouldn't be a problem.
Well, it's just. Some colleagues are coming.
Your boss? Colleagues? Either way, they should understand if you explain. When I pressed, Taylor fell silent. In that moment, I realized, oh, he must be planning to meet his mistress. Though I thought that, I didn't say it out loud. If you can't explain, I can talk to them for you.
No, that's okay. I'll handle it.
His panic confirmed it. He was definitely cheating. I was sure of it. But confronting him now would only lead to evasion. I decided to play dumb. All right, make sure to greet them properly. And don't forget to give them a gift.
Why?
Because it's polite. Give something the wife of your colleague likes. I implied I thought his companion was male. Taylor's face lit up.
Oh, sure, I'll do that.
Good. That helps. I turned away from Taylor, thinking, now I have a reason for our divorce. After that, I secretly installed cameras in various places. I installed a camera disguised as a car charger in Taylor's car and placed a USB adapter camera inside the house. Of course, the evidence of his cheating should be captured by the USB car charger camera. I plan to use that footage to request a behavior investigation. That's what I was thinking. I also hoped that the indoor camera would capture Taylor's verbal abuse towards me. But that might not happen much. Our conversations had drastically reduced. At one point, he often told me to save money, but he rarely said it lately. Maybe it's because I started working part-time and stopped mentioning household expenses to Taylor. We're not flush with money, but it's not bad enough to complain like before. I figured it was better to stay silent than say something and get snapped at. But the verbal abuse didn't stop entirely. Sometimes he'd say things like this.
Is dinner ready yet?
Sorry, I'm a bit late because of work.
What? Are you kidding me? If you can't do the housework, don't bother with a part-time job.
I couldn't respond to Taylor's words. He also said things like,
Take out this trash.
oh sure. What's inside?
Does it matter?
Taylor raised his voice. I flinched, but still asked. We need to sort it properly.
It's old fishing gear. You sort it and throw it out. Got it?
He stomped his foot in frustration. I nodded quietly, flinching at the sound. Although this happened a few times, Taylor's outbursts had significantly decreased. Capturing those few instances on camera was a big win. It's enough to push for a divorce. Now, I just need the right timing. Is there a good opportunity? I was always thinking about that. Then one day, sometime later, we were invited to dinner by John. Even though it was a family gathering, the in-laws and Taylor's brother and his wife would be there. I couldn't help but feel uneasy. Honestly, I wanted to decline. But meeting the in-laws was a rare chance. If I brought up the divorce there, Taylor would have to take me seriously. With that thought, I accepted John's invitation. Then, on the day of the dinner, Taylor, James, and I headed to a designated restaurant. It was a high-end restaurant we had never been to before.
Oh, Taylor and Sarah, over here.
Hi, John. Thanks for inviting us. We greeted them at our first reunion in a long time. Once we were seated, the dinner started. The dinner was to celebrate Taylor's brother's promotion. Apparently, he was promoted to department head. After offering our congratulations, the waiter came to take our order.
Give Sarah the deluxe course as usual.
Taylor said without hesitation. Then, James spoke curiously.
Huh? Mom gets instant noodles, right?
What are you talking about, James?
Well, whenever we order pizza, Mom always has instant noodles, right?
Taylor panicked at James' words. This is it, I thought, and I finally said it. Why don't you give the fancy meal to your 23-year-old mistress? Needless to say, the room froze at that moment. The die was finally cast. With Taylor visibly shaken, now was my chance. I had prepared meticulously for this day. I had plenty of evidence and wouldn't let him make any excuses. In front of my father-in-law, John, and my mother-in-law, Mary, I will make Taylor apologize to me. Then I'd slam the divorce papers down. But I didn't plan to stop at just divorce. My thirst for revenge wouldn't be quenched so easily. I wouldn't be satisfied until I exposed everything. I looked at Taylor and smirked. At that moment, Taylor, who had been frozen, finally snapped out of it. He pointed at me and shouted,
What are you talking about? Mistress? Stop spouting nonsense.
Really? If you don't understand, should I show you some clear evidence? I stood up forcefully. John tried to calm me down.
Sarah, please calm down.
When I looked back at John, his face was bright red. He seemed very angry. I couldn't disregard John's feelings. I took a deep breath and nodded. Okay, let's leave the restaurant.
Michael, you stay here with James. Can you take care of him?
Michael is Taylor's brother's name. Michael nodded slightly.
I don't mind, but
Thank you. Please take care of James.
all right.
In the end, James was left with Michael and his wife. Then I left the restaurant with my in-laws and Taylor. We headed straight to the in-laws' house, and as soon as we entered the living room, John raised his voice.
Taylor, what is going on?
Oh no, this is just Sarah's fabrication.
Taylor began to stammer and make excuses. I listened with a frown. He claimed he would never cheat. He said the cup noodle story was also nonsense. Taylor kept insisting on such things. I listened in silence. After Taylor finished his excuses, John turned to me.
That's what Taylor says, but let's hear Sarah's side.
Yes, it's a fact that Taylor is having an affair. As soon as I said that, Taylor shouted,
That's a lie. You don't have any evidence, so don't act so high and mighty.
Evidence? I have it.
What?
Taylor was visibly flustered. I sneered and reached into the bag I was carrying. I took out a brown envelope and placed it on the living room table. There are photos inside. Take a good look yourself.
Photos?
Taylor looked puzzled. Next to him, Mary quickly grabbed the envelope. She swiftly took out the photos. They were pictures of Taylor and a woman looking very intimate.
Oh my, they look quite close.
Despite her words, there was no smile in Mary's eyes. Mary handed the photos to John.
Indeed.
John glanced at the photos and then looked at Taylor. He thrust the photos at Taylor. Taylor glanced at the photos and immediately looked away. Then he began to make excuses.
This is just a work associate. I wasn't cheating.
For a work associate, you two look pretty close, don't you think?
It was just to keep things smooth at work. That's all. You understand that, right?
Taylor shouted, throwing the photos onto the floor. But I had expected as much. I took out another white envelope. I pulled out the photos and showed them to my in-laws and Taylor. These are from a different day, but do you need to get this close with a work associate? The photos showed Taylor and the woman looking at each other like lovers. There was no way he could make excuses for these. Anyone would see them as a couple. Of course, my in-laws thought the same. Mary looked at Taylor and asked in a low voice,
You can't excuse this. Were you having an affair?
Oh, well,
Answer clearly.
Taylor flinched at Mary's loud, firm voice. His eyes darted around, and he looked down. He was probably trying to come up with his excuse. Taylor's lips trembled slightly.
Why don't you just admit it, Taylor?
Well, I know. These were secretly taken. This is illegal surveillance.
Taylor turned to me. With a slight smirk, he pointed at me.
Secretly taking photos is a crime. It's an invasion of privacy. This can't be used as evidence.
But you were cheating, weren't you?
No, I wasn't. This can't be used as evidence.
Taylor shouted and tore up the picture I had given him. Then he started laughing loudly. Ha ha ha. It's truly pathetic. He should just admit it. I sighed.
What's the matter? Is that all? Yeah, I figured. The evidence was useless.
Then, would you accept the findings of an independent investigation? As I said this, I took a large clear file out of my bag. I placed it on the table and began to explain its contents. This is the result of Taylor's behavior investigation that I requested. I hired a proper detective agency.
Behavior investigation.
I figured you'd make excuses, so I got clear evidence. When confronted with hidden camera footage of an affair, most people admit to cheating. However, some, like Taylor, claim it's an invasion of privacy. That's when third-party evidence comes in handy. It's more convincing because it comes from an uninvolved party. So, do you still have excuses? I asked, and Taylor collapsed to the floor. I placed the investigation results in front of him. Take a good look with your own eyes. You cheated, didn't you?
Yes.
Taylor crouched down on the floor. I looked at him, shrinking before me, and then asked for his agreement. You'll agree to a divorce, won't you?
But what people would say.
I understood his concern about public image. But this was his doing. After cheating on me, is he seriously trying to say he doesn't want a divorce now? Honestly, it makes me furious. I clenched my teeth and said to Taylor, You know, cheating wasn't the only thing you did.
What?
Don't play dumb. Did you forget what James said earlier? I stared at Taylor. Then John interjected.
That's right. James mentioned that Mom always has instant noodles.
Yes, that's correct.
Can you explain that in detail?
John glanced at Taylor. Taylor flinched and looked down again. Sure, actually. I explained the situation to John. First, I explained how Taylor became arrogant after our marriage. Then, I talked about how he demanded excessive frugality from me. I also mentioned that whenever we ordered takeout, only I had instant noodles. Additionally, I spoke about the verbal abuse he directed at me. Just do the housework and keep quiet. If you can't do housework, don't bother with a part-time job. I told John all these things. Hearing this, John was furious. He shouted at Taylor, who was still crouching.
Who do you think you are? Sarah was doing the housework for you all.
That's not true.
Taylor tried to make excuses again, so I cut him off. I have evidence of that too. You think I only recorded inside the car? When I said that, Taylor fell silent. It seemed he understood. In fact, the camera I placed inside captured Taylor's verbal abuse. I had the videos on my phone and could play them right then and there.
Is that true, Taylor?
Yes.
He replied vaguely. I understood. He had no other choice. But John's anger wasn't quelled that easily. He sat Taylor down and looked him in the eye as he asked,
Answer clearly. You were just getting carried away, weren't you?
Yes. I'm sorry.
Tears welled up in Taylor's eyes. Come to think of it, Taylor had always been insecure. Being flattered by me had gradually turned him into an arrogant person. Of course, I had some responsibility for his change. But Taylor was also at fault for not exercising self-restraint. I wished I had managed things before it came to this. I needed to reflect on that. As I thought about it, Mary tugged on my arm. Then she said,
You have evidence of the verbal abuse, right? Can you show it to us?
Oh yes. I showed Mary the video on my phone. Taylor's harsh words echoed from the phone. I turned my face away reflexively. It's over now. I kept repeating that phrase in my mind to reassure myself. After watching the video, Mary quietly asked Taylor,
So, how do you plan to take responsibility, Taylor?
Well, I won't cheat anymore.
Not cheating is a given.
Mary's words left Taylor hanging his head. It seemed Mary had given him a nudge. I made up my mind. I took out the divorce papers I had prepared from my bag. Sign the divorce papers.
Divorces.
Sign them. At my firm words, Taylor slowly nodded. I handed him the divorce papers. Taylor signed the papers in front of me. I said to Taylor while he was signing, I will also demand alimony, so be prepared.
Understood.
And I will take custody of James. I can't trust someone who cheats. Taylor could only nod at my words. After receiving the signed divorce papers, I said goodbye to my in-laws and left their house. I then went to pick up James. After thanking Michael and his wife, I took James home.
Hey, where's Dad?
That is. How should I explain this? I was worried, but hiding it wouldn't help. Your dad and I have decided to live separately.
Is it because I mentioned the instant noodles?
James looked sad. Even as a child, he might feel responsible. No, it's not that. Your dad and I decided this a long time ago. I told a small lie, but it was a lie for the sake of my child. I hope God would forgive me for this. With that thought, I began to clean up the room. James, understanding our divorce, silently cleaned up his room. Once we finished, I took James and left the house. We headed to my parents' home. On the way, I contacted my dad. I sent him an email explaining the circumstances of the divorce. Thanks to that, we were welcomed at my parents' home without any trouble. Shortly after arriving at my parents' house, John called me.
You'll need a job now that you're divorced.
John used his connections to help me find a job. It was an office job at a travel agency run by one of John's friends. Thanks to that, I could live with James without financial worries after the divorce. But I had one more thing to do. I needed to see the results of a certain matter. Until those results came in, I couldn't rest easy. Or rather, until it was settled. It should be settled in a few weeks, right? Muttering to myself, I focused on my work. Then, a few weeks later, my phone rang just as I finished work. I answered the phone without checking the caller. Hello? Just as I started to speak, a loud voice cut me off.
Help me, Sarah.
Oh, Taylor?
Yes, help me. You're my only hope, Sarah.
Hearing those words, I realized it's finally over. But I pretended to know nothing and asked Taylor about the situation. What's wrong? Why are you so panicked?
It's really bad. I might get arrested.
Not might. You will get arrested. I thought to myself. Let's go back a bit. Right after Taylor and I decided to divorce, I sent some evidence from the behavior investigation to his office where Taylor worked. One was a photo of Taylor with his mistress, a woman named Lauren, and the other was a photo of Taylor, Lauren, and Lauren's boss together. Lauren worked for a local construction company, and Taylor was in the city's civil engineering department. In other words, Taylor's claim that she was a work associate wasn't entirely a lie. However, Taylor was on the side awarding city road work contracts, and Lauren's company was the one receiving those contracts. You can see where this is going. They were both engaged in illegal activities. Lauren was dating Taylor to get information about the prices for city road maintenance and repair work. In return, Taylor received various items from her. The investigation revealed he received gift certificates and fishing gear, among other things. There might have been other items, but I didn't know for sure. Regardless, I was confident in my suspicions, so when I requested the investigation, I said, I think he's accepting bribes. Please look into that as well. I was certain, but I had no evidence to show others. So I had the investigator look into it as part of the behavior check. As expected, the results were incriminating. Taylor had indeed received goods from Lauren's construction company. So how did I realize this? You might wonder. It was actually by chance. It was shortly after I started recording Taylor's verbal abuse. Taylor once told me, "Throw out this trash." When I asked what was inside, he said it was old fishing gear. That struck me as odd. For instance, if he had said to throw out broken fishing gear, I wouldn't have thought much of it. However, he said to throw out old fishing gear, which struck me as odd. Fishing gear can be cheap, but some of it is quite expensive. Also, there are many stores that buy used fishing gear. Taylor was so stingy with money that he made me save money. Maybe it was because he was paying a tribute to Lauren. Having money is always better than not. That's what Taylor would have thought. So, it struck me as strange that he didn't sell the old fishing gear. If he wasn't selling it, maybe he couldn't sell it. There must have been a reason he didn't want anyone to know. Thinking along those lines, I came to one conclusion. Maybe Taylor had obtained the new fishing gear in a way he couldn't openly admit. Of course, this alone didn't point to bribery. But then, the camera inside the house provided the decisive evidence. In fact, Taylor was caught on camera having a phone conversation with someone saying,
Can you make it travel vouchers next time? I want to take my mistress to a resort hotel.
When I saw that footage, I was truly speechless. In just a few lines of conversation, he had confessed to both cheating and bribery. But that solidified my resolve. This man wasn't worth saving. I wouldn't just divorce him, I would make sure he paid for his crimes. So, I sent the evidence to various places, and you'll definitely get arrested.
It was you.
I'm not the bad one here. You are. When I said that, Taylor fell silent. It seemed he finally resigned himself to his fate. As I was thinking about this, another voice came on the line, separate from Taylor's.
You're Taylor's ex-wife, aren't you?
Huh? Who is this?
This is Lauren. Just because you got dumped doesn't mean you have to be so dirty.
The woman calling herself Lauren shouted. I could only sigh at her words. There's no point in arguing with her. I was about to hang up, but she took my silence as a chance to start complaining.
Can't let go of Taylor, can you? Acting like this isn't cute, old lady.
That really got to me. I put the phone back to my ear and spoke in a slightly lower voice. Who are you calling an old lady?
You, obviously, at 40, you're definitely old.
I don't need to hear that from someone with no manners. I snorted. Lauren spoke again, sounding triumphant.
You're just bitter. If you're upset, just admit it.
I'm not upset at all.
That's what being bitter sounds like.
Lauren's laughter echoed in my ears. Unable to bear it, I said one last thing. People who can't follow the rules of fidelity and relationships find societal rules difficult too.
What did you say?
I mean, you act like it's someone else's problem. You might get arrested too. As soon as I said that, Lauren's tone changed.
What? Why would I?
You're involved, aren't you? If Taylor gets caught, they'll investigate you too.
No, wait. That can't be true, right?
Lauren suddenly panicked. I laughed and replied, It's true. And before you get arrested, make sure you pay the alimony.
What? Wait. I can't afford that.
Wait for a call from my lawyer.
No.
Lauren's scream was so loud that I quickly hung up. After that, Taylor was arrested on bribery charges. Lauren's company was also under investigation. What happens to Lauren is still unknown, but it seems she's being questioned. In any case, as long as she pays the alimony, I don't care what happens to her. After Taylor was arrested, John called me.
We've decided to move to the countryside.
After Taylor's arrest, rumors spread in the neighborhood. So they decided to move to the rural town where John's brother's wife, Emily, is from. Of course, Michael and his wife were moving too. When I heard this, I felt a bit sorry. However, Michael had always planned to take over Emily's family's farm eventually.
This just sped things up a bit, so don't worry about it.
That's what Michael told me. I have my thoughts, but I respect their decision. By the way, I'm working hard at the office job John introduced me to. James was depressed right after the divorce, but now he seems to be back to his old self. He had to transfer schools, but I think he's fitting in well at the new one.
I'm home. What's for a snack, Mom?
There's pudding in the fridge. Wash your hands first.
Okay.
James ran to the bathroom, full of energy. I asked him, "How about visiting Grandpa and Grandma during the summer vacation?" Grandpa refers to John. He was told by his grandparents to come and visit. Honestly, I was hesitant. Wouldn't it be hard for my in-laws to see me? But despite my worries, James answered with an untroubled smile.
Yeah, I want to go.
At that moment, all my doubts vanished.